The sky has forgotten how to be dark. It glows now, even at night, a bruised orange haze that never fades. People say it's the sand itself, ground so fine it floats higher than the clouds, each particle carrying a faint chemical luminescence. Whatever the cause, the stars have been gone for years, and with them went our sense of time. Night and day are just different shades of sickly orange. I remember when storms used to pass. They'd roll in, they'd roar, and eventually they'd leave. These ones don't. They're not storms anymore, they're a season, a march, the march of the glowing sandstorms. They sweep across the continent in waves, and when they finally move on, they leave behind silence that feels worse than the storm itself. The land is unrecognizable. Highways look like cracked scars leading nowhere. Cars are buried up to their roofs in dunes that shimmer faintly after sundown. The outlines of cities exist only as broken skeletons. Rusted towers, melted glass, walls scoured smooth by years of abrasive winds. Sometimes, if you dig through the drifts, you'll find the top of a stoplight or the corner of a sign telling you what street you're standing on. But those names mean nothing now. There are no streets, no neighborhoods, no landmarks, just sand. It's not the desert you're picturing. This isn't golden or warm or even natural. It's corrosive. It eats through fabric, ruins filters, and sticks to your skin with a faint burn if you don't scrub it off fast enough. People used to whisper that the particles were radioactive, that some war or meltdown was the trigger. Others blamed the earth itself, poisoned from years of drilling, fracking, and burning until it decided to spit us out. No one knows. No one cares anymore. What's left of civilization clings to the edges. The government fractured early on. First the power outages, then the shortages, then the evacuations that weren't really evacuations but death marches into camps with no supplies. Whatever leaders survived are either buried under the sand or hiding behind their own walls of metal and guns. Nobody answers the old emergency frequencies anymore. Sometimes you'll pick up faint voices, automated warnings looping endlessly, shelter in place. Avoid contact with dust. Maintain hydration. Empty echoes from a world that died years ago. Survivors fall into three groups as far as I've seen. There are the scavengers who roam in small packs, stripping metal and gear from anything they can find. You can hear them before you see them. Engines coughing through the dust, headlights smeared yellow. They'll trade sometimes if you've got something valuable, but mostly they take what they want. Then there are the settlers. They've found holes to crawl into, basements, bunkers, caves, and they cling there, growing sick on stale air and dwindling supplies. They build rituals around survival, like scratching tally marks into the walls, measuring time by storms instead of calendars. Most of them don't make it a year. And then there are the transmitters. That's what I am, I guess. Voices in the static. We keep the radios alive, pedaling or cranking or wiring whatever scraps of power we can find just to throw a signal into the void. We don't know who hears us, but it's proof we still exist. I like to believe someone's listening, even if they never answer. It makes the loneliness sting less. The sand has devoured more than the land. It's eaten our memories. When I try to picture the world before, the images feel fragile, as though they'll shatter if I look at them too hard. A park on a summer morning, wet grass, a baseball game on the radio, the faces of people I loved, unblurred by dust. They're still there, but faint, like trying to recall the details of a dream. The worst part is the waiting. The storms don't come on a schedule, but you feel them before they hit. A pressure in the lungs, a taste of metal at the back of your tongue. The wind shifts, and the glow on the horizon grows brighter. You wonder if this will be the storm that doesn't pass. If this will be the one that finally buries you completely. That's the world now. A horizon smeared with fire-colored dust. Empty towers cut down to stumps. Voices fading in and out of static. Survival measured in minutes of breathable air, in ounces of water, in whether your shelter holds when the sand starts to scream against the walls. It's not life. Not really. It's persistence. And persistence is all we've got left. My name doesn't matter anymore. Once upon a time it did. Names carried weight. They tied you to families, jobs, communities. They meant something. Now, names are just noise, syllables carried off by the wind. Out here, all that matters is the voice, the signal, whether it carries, whether it reaches someone who needs to hear it. If you've tuned into this frequency before, maybe you know me by what I call myself now, Station Zero. That's what I am. The last zero on the dial, the sound that leaks through when every other frequency has gone quiet. I guess you could call me a radio broadcaster, though that makes it sound bigger than it is. Really, I'm just a man cranking a pedal generator, whispering into a broken microphone, hoping someone somewhere still has ears. The truth is, I don't even know if anyone's listening. Some days I imagine survivors scattered across the wasteland, curled up beside sputtering radios, clinging to every word I send out. Other days, I wonder if I'm just talking to myself, a lonely fool filling the static with confessions that won't matter when I'm gone. But even if that's the case, even if this signal never lands anywhere, it's better than silence. Silence is death. Silence means we've truly vanished. I didn't set out to be this voice. Before the Sandstorms, I was a sound engineer. I worked in a little studio downtown, splicing together commercials and jingles that nobody remembers. I had a wife, too, Nora, a daughter, Lily. We used to joke that my whole life was measured in decibels. I kept the soundboard running at work, and at home I kept the house loud with laughter, bedtime stories, and Lily's squeaky violin practice. That was my world. When the first storm rolled in, we thought it was a freak event. We closed the windows, sealed the doors, and waited. Days passed, then weeks. The air stung if you stepped outside. Food rotted. Power flickered. We still believed the government would fix it. There were broadcasts then, official-sounding voices telling us to ration water, to evacuate inland, to wait for relief. We clung to those voices. Then the voices stopped. The day Nora and Lily were taken, I don't want to talk about it. Not yet. The storm was worse than any before, and the shelter didn't hold. I tried. God, I tried. But the sand doesn't care how hard you fight. When I finally dug myself free, the house was gone, and so were they. Just gone. Swallowed whole. I tell myself maybe they made it, that maybe they're out there listening right now. Maybe one day, against every possible odds, I'll hear a voice on this frequency that sounds like hers. That's what keeps me alive. That's what keeps me cranking this generator until my legs burn and my lungs ache from the dust. Hope is a fragile thing, but it's heavier than despair. Despair will kill you. Hope makes you keep moving, even when your body wants to stop. Day to day, survival is simple math. Air, water, calories. I live in the husk of an old emergency relay tower. The equipment was fried long ago, but I scavenged enough pieces to build something crude. My shelter is buried under a dune, the tower just a rusted spine above me. I filter the air through cloth and charcoal, and I keep buckets outside to catch what little condensation the storms sometimes bring. It's not much. Every gulp feels like gambling with poison, but it's all I've got. Food is trickier. Cans mostly. Whatever I can scavenge before the scavenger gangs sweep through. I've gone days without, just surviving on radio static and spite. Hunger is a quieter death than thirst, but it gnaws at you all the same. And yet, through all of it, I keep the signal alive. I keep talking. Sometimes I share coordinates of half-buried caches I've stumbled across. Sometimes I read old books into the microphone, like bedtime stories for ghosts. Sometimes I just talk about the way the sky looks, or how the storms sound when they scrape against the tower. The details don't matter. What matters is that the frequency isn't empty. People ask, or they would, if anyone actually answered, why bother? Why waste what little strength I have on a signal that might not reach anyone? Because once the airwaves go quiet, it's over. Civilization ends not with an explosion or a scream, but with silence. As long as voices keep threading through the static, we're still here. We still matter. I won't pretend I don't think about giving up. There are nights when the storm rattles the tower so hard I think it'll collapse, and I just sit there, clutching the microphone, daring the sand to finish me. Sometimes I want it to. Sometimes I want the waiting to end, for the dust to take me the way it took them. But every time I'm on the edge, something pulls me back. Like the time I caught a faint reply on the radio. Just one word, garbled but real. North. I don't know who sent it or what it meant. I've never heard it again. But that one word was enough to keep me pedaling. Enough to remind me that the world doesn't end all at once. There are still survivors out there. There have to be. I tell myself I keep broadcasting for them, for the chance to connect, to trade, to warn. But deep down, I know it's more selfish than that. I do it because it's the only way I remember who I was before the storms. A husband, a father, a man who filled the air with sound, not silence. That's who I am now, a crackling voice in the static, a stubborn ember that refuses to go out. Station Zero, still here, still breathing, still waiting. The storms are getting worse. That's not me being dramatic. It's not some metaphor I'm spinning for effect. It's just the truth. When the first glowing walls of dust appeared years ago, they were terrifying, yes, but they passed. They'd roll through like freight trains, shake the ground, choke the air, and then after a few days you get calm again. Time to patch roofs, scrub filters, ration supplies, breathe. Now, they don't leave. They stack. A storm will sit over the same region for weeks, layering sand on sand until whole towns are erased from the map. I know because I went looking. Last month I made a supply run east toward what used to be Wichita. I'd marked it on my maps for months, planning carefully, waiting for a break in the weather. The old reports said the place had grain silos, cold storage facilities, underground reserves, maybe enough to keep me alive another season. When I got there, all I found was a mountain of glowing dunes. No streets, no rooftops, just an orange-lit hillscape stretching out as far as my eyes could see. The sand had eaten the city whole. That's the crisis in a nutshell. The storms aren't just weather anymore. They're geography. They're changing the very shape of the land, swallowing everything we built and leaving behind something alien. Something that hums faintly at night and makes your teeth ache if you stand in it too long. And survival, it's a losing equation. Water is the first limit, always water. You'd think with all this swirling dust there'd be moisture somewhere in it, but no, it's bone dry. The condensation traps I set out every night pull in only a few ounces at best. Enough to wet my lips, not enough to fill me. I've learned to recycle everything. Sweat, breath, even urine when it comes down to it. You want the truth. Survival tastes like salt and rust. Food is next. The cans I scavenged from the tower's basement are almost gone. Metal corrodes fast out here, eaten away by the grit. The labels fade so you never know if you're opening beans or dog food until the smell hits. I've started trapping sand beetles. They nest deep in the dunes and glow faintly at night, feeding on God knows what. Crunchy little bastards, but protein is protein. Fuel's a nightmare. The pedal generator only gets me so far. I've rigged solar panels scavenged from old rooftops, but they clog with dust in hours and barely give enough charge for a few minutes of broadcast. Every decision is a trade. Do I spend my strength keeping the signal alive, or do I hoard it for running, for fighting, for breathing when the storm's close in? Every day, the choices get smaller. The sacrifice is bigger. Here's what I know, or at least what I tell myself I know, piecing together scraps of data and half-remembered news reports. The atmosphere's changed. The jet streams that used to carry weather around the globe have collapsed. Heat builds, pressure shifts, and instead of storms dispersing, they anchor themselves. They spin in place, grinding the surface to powder. And that powder, it isn't normal dust. It carries a static charge, glows faintly at night. Some scientists, back when we still had scientists, said it was a mix of silica, heavy metals, and trace chemicals from burned industrial sites. Imagine billions of microscopic shards of glass laced with poison, floating endlessly in the air. That's what we breathe now. That's why our lungs burn, why our eyes cloud, why our skin never heals right. I once met a man who swore he'd found Geiger counters ticking faster when the storms rolled in. Said it was fallout, not weather. Said this wasn't climate collapse, it was nuclear winter in disguise. Maybe he was right. Maybe it doesn't matter. The outcome's the same, a planet we can't live on. You can't live through this alone forever. That's the other part of the crisis. 2 weeks ago, I picked up a faint signal on the shortwave. A woman's voice, scratchy, repeating, "Safe ground north. Safe ground north." Over and over like a mantra. I wanted to believe it. God, I needed to believe it. But I wasn't the only one listening. The scavengers caught me a day into the journey. A gang of 5 riding stripped-down ATVs with air intake filters strapped over their faces. They didn't bother talking, just circled me like wolves, engines snarling, dust whipping around us. I held up my radio, tried to trade. I've got batteries, I've got maps, I can share frequencies. But they only laughed. They took my pack, my last 3 cans, my spare filters. Left me crawling in the dust, lungs raw, vision spinning. The only reason I'm still here is because one of them hesitated. A younger guy. He looked at me through his visor, hand on my shoulder like he wanted to say something, then shoved me down and drove off with the others. I think about his eyes sometimes. There was something there. Pity maybe, or recognition. Like he saw himself in me and couldn't bring himself to finish the job. I limped back to the tower with nothing but what I could carry in my pockets. I should have died. Maybe I did, in a way. The version of me that thought people would help each other, that believed in kindness. That part didn't make it back. Still, not everyone is an enemy. Last night, just before the generator gave out, I heard a child's voice on the radio. No words, just humming. A song. Faint, off-key, but real. I don't know if it was a recording or a live transmission. I don't know if it was a trick, but it was enough to remind me why I keep this damn signal alive. Enough to prove the scavengers haven't won yet. But none of that matters if the storms keep closing in. The last 3 days, the horizon has been a wall of light. Orange during the day, greenish at night. The tower shakes so hard I can hear bolts snapping. The air tastes of blood and electricity. I've sealed every crack in the shelter, but fine grains still leak in, piling against the walls like the tide. I don't sleep anymore. I just sit at the mic, talking, hoping my words carry farther than the storm. I tell whoever's listening how to build filters out of rags and ash, how to keep your batteries warm by wrapping them against your skin, how to measure the pressure drop in your ears before a storm hits so you know when to dig in. Maybe no one hears me. Maybe 100 people do. Either way, it keeps me sane. But I can't shake the fear that survival is slipping out of reach. Every storm lasts longer. Every run yields less. Every voice I catch on the airwaves fades faster. The crisis isn't just the weather. The crisis is time. How much longer can we keep this up before the sand takes everything? Because survival isn't living. It's bargaining. Every mouthful of water is stolen from tomorrow's supply. Every broadcast is a gamble of power versus hunger. Every encounter with another survivor could mean trade or it could mean death. And every sunrise feels less like a victory and more like a delay of the inevitable. I used to think the world ended all at once. A bang. A cataclysm. A single day that split the calendar into before and after. But that's not how it works. The world dies in increments, bit by bit, storm by storm, and we die with it one compromise at a time. The water drums are almost dry. 2 gulps left, maybe 3 if I'm careful. I've been stretching them out, pretending my mouth isn't cracked, pretending my stomach isn't twisting itself into knots. Funny thing is, hunger screams at you, but thirst whispers. It creeps in soft, makes your head swim, makes the air feel thick. Then one day you can't get up. I'm not there yet, but I can see it. The storms are pushing harder now. The glow is brighter, like the sand itself is alive, pulsing. Every time I step outside, it feels like I'm walking through a furnace made of glass shards. Filters clog in minutes, and I don't have the cloth to keep replacing them. My skin stays raw, blistered from where the dust works under the seams of my clothes. I can't afford to think about infection, not when water's already the line between life and death. I keep telling myself I'll find more. that I'll make it through another run, that there's still caches out there buried under the dunes. But the truth is, the land feels picked clean. Everyone who came before me already scavenged it bare. I heard another voice last night, clearer than any I've caught in months. A woman again, maybe the same one who sent north before, though I can't be sure. This time she said more, river, flowing water, still clean. She repeated it 3 times, then static. It could be a lie, a trap. Scavengers are clever, they bait you with hope, then wait at the coordinates with guns and blades. But if it's real, if there's water still moving, still drinkable, I don't know if I can afford not to believe. 2 days later, I opened my final tin. Beans. Mold on one corner, green fuzz I had to scrape off with a knife. I ate them cold, fingers shaking, tasting more metal than food. The silence afterward was worse than the hunger. No clink of another can to look forward to. Nothing left but beetles and dust. I tried the traps again. 3 caught, 1 already dead, eaten from the inside by something smaller. I forced the other 2 down. Crunchy shells, bitter aftertaste that stuck in my throat. When you're starving, you tell yourself it doesn't matter, but my body knows. I feel weaker every morning. The generator's barely holding. Pedaling takes strength, and strength takes calories I don't have. Every broadcast drains me more. But if I stop sending the signal, then I'm just one more corpse waiting to be buried in sand. Sometimes I think that's all survival is now, not staying alive, just postponing the burial. 3 nights ago, I heard engines again. At first I thought it was my mind playing tricks, the way sound carries in storms. But then I saw them, faint beams cutting through the dust, circling the tower. ATVs again, maybe the same gang, maybe different. Hard to tell when they all wear the same blacked-out masks, filters hissing. I killed the generator, sat in the dark, breath shallow, praying they wouldn't try the hatch. They didn't, not this time. Just revved their engines, whooped like wild dogs, then vanished into the storm. But the message was clear. They know I'm here. They're waiting. It's only a matter of time before hunger or desperation drives them back. And I don't have enough left to fight them off. Still, that word gnaws at me. River. Could be a lie. Could be death. But if it's true, if there's clean water flowing anywhere in this poisoned world, it changes everything. Every night since, I've debated it. Stay in the tower, keep transmitting, slowly starve. Or gamble what little I have left chasing a rumor. I've been circling it in my head, but the decision was made the moment I heard her voice. I can't stay here. Not anymore. If I'm going to die, I want it to be chasing something. Not waiting to rot in this coffin. To anyone listening, I'm leaving Tower 0. Supplies are gone and the storms are getting worse. If this broadcast cuts out, maybe that's the end of me. Maybe not. There's word of water to the north. A river, still flowing, still clean. If you've heard it too, maybe I'll see you there. Maybe there's still a chance for us. This is Station 0. Signing off for now. The first hours north nearly killed me. The sand pressed in from every direction, swirling so thick I couldn't see more than a few feet. My compass spun uselessly, needle jittering like it couldn't find north anymore. I picked a direction and prayed it was right. Walking in the storms is wrong. The air doesn't just push against you, it pulls, sucks at your clothes, drags you sideways. Like the wind has hands. Every step is like moving through water, except it cuts, abrades, shreds your skin. I wrapped rags around my face until I could barely breathe, but still the dust found its way in. Hours blurred. My legs shook. My mouth felt like paper. Every time I stumbled, I thought about turning back, but there was nothing to turn back to. By nightfall, I found wreckage, an overturned truck half buried in a dune. I crawled inside, curled against the rusted frame, and listened to the storm rattle metal like bones. I dreamed of rivers. When I woke, the truck was gone. Just sand where it had been. On the 3rd day, I saw her. At first, I thought it was a mirage. A figure walking toward me through the glow, face covered, coat whipping in the wind. I reached for the knife I'd strapped to my thigh, heart hammering, but she raised her hands. "No weapon," she shouted over the storm. "I'm alone," her voice, rough, cracked, but familiar, the same voice I'd heard on the radio. You sent the broadcast, I rasped. My throat was raw, barely a whisper. She nodded, pulled down her mask just enough for me to see chapped lips, cracked skin. There's water, she said. I can take you there, but you have to trust me. Trust. The most dangerous word left in this world. I hesitated, every muscle screaming to turn and run. But where would I run to? Back into the storm? Back to nothing? I nodded, slowly. And just like that, my fate wasn't my own anymore. Every step since, I've argued with myself. She could be leading me into a trap. Scavengers use bait, everyone knows that. She could be stringing me along until I collapse, then stripping me for scraps. But she also could be real. She could be the last good thing left in this dying world. I study her when she doesn't notice. The way she checks the sky like she knows something I don't. The way she carries her pack, heavier than mine, like she has supplies she isn't showing yet. The way her eyes flicker when I catch her staring at me, as if she's wondering the same things about me. We walk together, but a gulf of doubt yawns between us. 2 nights in, we found a dry riverbed. The sand had carved deep channels through it, glowing faintly in the dark. Here, she said, follow. We walked the channel for miles until I began to hear it, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Not wind, not static, not engines. Running water, I froze, knees weak. Still think I'm lying, she asked, a shadow of a smile on her lips. I didn't answer. Couldn't, my throat was too tight, because there it was. A trickle at first, then a stream, then a river pushing stubbornly through the sand, cold and clear and real. I fell to my knees and drank until my stomach cramped. I didn't care. I didn't care about parasites or poison or any of the old warnings. It was water, sweet, living water. I looked up at her, and for the first time in years I felt something like faith. But faith in this world is as dangerous as thirst. If you can hear me, listen closely. The river is real, but it's not what it should be. It runs cold and clear, cutting through dunes that should have buried it long ago. The glow of the sand fades along its banks, like the water pushes the poison away. I should be grateful. I should fall on my knees every morning and thank whatever miracle kept this alive. But something is wrong here. I can feel it in my bones. The woman doesn't drink like I do. She sips, cautious, like she knows better. I asked her name, but she just said, "Not yet." I don't know if she's protecting me or testing me or if she even trusts me at all. Last night I woke to find her standing by the water, hands submerged, whispering. Words I couldn't make out, carried away by the current. When she noticed me watching, she pulled her hands free like she'd been burned. "Go back to sleep," she said. Her eyes shone like she'd been crying. I didn't sleep. I haven't since. The air is heavy, too heavy, like the sky itself is holding its breath. The glow on the horizon has thickened into a wall of light, brighter than anything I've seen since the storms began. Green, orange, even flashes of violet that make the hairs on my arms rise. "It's coming here," she said this morning. The march. The march." She spoke it like a proper noun, like the storm itself had intent. I asked her how she knew, because it always comes for the water. I wanted to ask more, but that's when we heard engines. 5 riders again. Maybe the same ones, maybe different, doesn't matter. They followed the river upstream, masks reflecting the glow, visors blank. The woman grabbed my arm. "Stay low, don't let them see you." But they saw us. The leader dismounted, boots sinking into the wet sand like it was foreign territory. He tilted his head at us, then at the river. I could see his lips move under the mask. "Doesn't make sense," he muttered. "Shouldn't be here." They spread out, circling. Engines idled, snarling like animals. One of them pointed at me, another at her. I knew the look, the math of desperation. We were worth more to them dead than alive. The leader raised his hand, and that's when the storm hit. I've seen sandstorms before, but nothing like this. The horizon didn't just glow, it ignited. A wall of luminous dust came roaring down the riverbed, swallowing sky and ground alike. The sound was unbearable, like a jet engine tearing itself apart. The scavengers panicked, scrambling for their machines. Engines sputtered, choked, failed. The sand clung to them like tar, sparking, shorting circuits. I saw one rider ripped clean off his ATV, vanishing into the storm without a sound. The woman grabbed my wrist. "Run!" We stumbled along the river, blinded, deafened, half-dragged by the current's pull. My lungs screamed, each breath thick with static and fire. I thought I was dying. I thought maybe this was the end, finally. But the storm didn't cross the water. It split. On either side of the river, the glowing wall carved forward, devouring dunes. But over the water it only shimmered, hesitant, as if the current repelled it. We crouched in the middle of the channel, soaked, clutching each other as the world was erased around us. When it passed, the scavengers were gone. Machines buried, bodies lost. Only we remained. I stared at the river, at the way it cut through destruction untouched. "This isn't natural," I said, throat raw. "No," she whispered, "it isn't." Finally, she told me her name, Mara. She said she'd been following the river for months, trying to understand it. She said it always moved, always shifted, carving new paths through dunes that should have buried it. And wherever it went, people followed, desperate, thirsty, clinging to hope. But hope kills too, she said. The river gives, but it takes back more. I asked her what she meant. She pulled up her sleeve. Her arm was mottled with scars, burns that shimmered faintly under the glow. "The water changes you," she said, "slowly, inside first, then out." I thought of how she only sipped, how she whispered to it at night, how my stomach had burned after I drank, cramps twisting like knives. I wanted to scream, to curse her for leading me here. But then I saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't the enemy. The river was. And yet I couldn't stop thinking of the sweetness of that first drink, of how alive it made me feel. The storm is still out there, building, circling, hunting the river. Mara says it won't stop this time. She says the march is closing in for good. We have two choices. Stay by the river, drink, maybe survive longer, but risk becoming something else. Something inhuman. Leave it behind, head back into the dunes with nothing but dust in our lungs and hope in our hearts. Neither choice is life. Both are just different kinds of death. I look at Mara, at her scarred arm, at the way her eyes shine in the glow. She's already halfway gone. I look at my hands, trembling, veins faintly glowing under the skin. Maybe I am too. You for a while, but nothing in this world comes free. The storms are closing in. I don't know how much longer this signal will carry. I don't know what I'll choose. Maybe I'll drink, let the river remake me into something that can survive the storms. Maybe I'll turn away, die human, but die soon. If you find the river, remember my voice. Remember Station Zero. Remember Mara. Remember that hope can kill just as surely as thirst. This is the turning point. This is the moment everything ends or begins again. The storm passed 3 nights ago. At least, I think it was 3. Time doesn't move the way it used to. Every sunrise feels false, filtered through skies that never clear. But I am still here. That alone feels like defiance. The march should have erased us the way it erased the scavengers, the machines, the dunes. But the river shielded us, split the storm like it was nothing. I don't know if it was science or sorcery. Maybe the two are the same now. But I watched it with my own eyes. A wall of glowing dust came roaring down, and the water simply said no. And I stayed. I drank. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I'd walk away, leave it behind, let the thirst take me before the river did. But when my lips cracked, when my tongue felt like ash, when my chest burned with every swallow of dry air, I broke. The water was sweeter than before. It filled me like lightning. Like every cell had been starving and suddenly remembered how to live. But there was pain too. Not the simple pain of thirst, but something deeper, stranger. A heat under my skin that pulsed in rhythm with the current. My veins shimmer in the dark now. Faint, but there. Sometimes I catch them glowing in reflection off the radio glass. I used to flinch at it. Now I just watch. Mara says the river marks everyone differently. Some lose their hair. Some lose their memories. Some grow new strength, lungs that can breathe the dust, skin that can resist the glow. She doesn't know yet what I'll become. Neither do I, but the alternative was death. And I wasn't ready. Mara is quiet now. She speaks less each day, her eyes always on the horizon, as if waiting for the storm to come back. She hasn't touched the water since the night it spared us. I think she's already too far gone. Her scars shine brighter than before. Her veins too, but she doesn't flinch or hide them anymore. It's not a cure, she told me. It's a trade. I didn't ask what she traded. I didn't tell her what I was willing to give up. Maybe we're both cowards. Maybe we're just tired. The dunes are gone, flattened, leveled by the storm. Where there were ridges and valleys, now there's just open wasteland streaked with glowing trails where the march scraped the earth bare. The air tastes sharper. The storms left something behind, a shimmer that hangs low to the ground, humming faintly at night. My radio picks it up, fragments of static that don't belong to any voice. Sometimes I think I hear whispers in it, like the dunes themselves are trying to speak. Animals are gone. The last bones were buried under sand long ago. Even the carrion beetles are thinning out. The only things that move now are us and those who come hunting for the river. Because word spreads. Always. 2 nights ago I heard voices downstream. Survivors. They found the river. I wanted to call out to warn them to share what little I know. But Mara stopped me. They have to choose for themselves, she said. I listened as they laughed, splashing in the shallows, drinking deep. I wanted to believe their laughter was joy, that maybe the river was a gift and not a curse. But the next morning, only silence. Footprints in the sand leading away. Some barefoot, some dragging, some crawling. No bodies. I don't know if that's better or worse. Sometimes I turn the radio toward myself, just to hear my own voice echo back. It feels like proof I'm still human, even if the glow says otherwise. I wonder if survival is still survival when it costs you everything you were. Once I would have said no, that it was better to die human than live as something else. But thirst changes the math. Hope changes it too. I wanted to keep my voice alive, keep the signal carrying, even if no one was listening. Maybe that's selfish. Maybe it's brave. I don't know anymore. All I know is this: the world hasn't healed. The march hasn't ended. The storms are worse, hungrier. But so am I. Maybe that's the point. Here's what hasn't changed. The stars. Last night, for the first time in months, the clouds broke, just a little. A thin tear in the shroud. And there they were, stars, faint, almost smothered, but real. I forgot how many there could be. I forgot how small they make you feel and how enormous too. It doesn't matter if the river takes me. It doesn't matter if the storms bury us tomorrow. The stars are still there, waiting above the glow. That's enough. Enough to keep me speaking into the static. Enough to keep me walking when my legs ache. Enough to make me believe that even if the world doesn't heal, we might. Not in the way we used to, not as we were, but in some new, strange form that can outlast the march. Maybe that's survival now, not endurance, not resistance, adaptation. If you hear me, know this: the river is both poison and gift. Drink if you must, walk away if you can. There is no right choice anymore, only the choice that lets you see another dawn. I made mine, and I am still here. I don't know how long this frequency will hold. The storms shift the airwaves, bend them, break them. Some nights my voice goes nowhere, swallowed by static. Some nights it carries further than I ever dreamed. Maybe you hear me, maybe you don't, but I'll keep talking anyway. That's all survival really is now. Not the food we scrape, not the water we gamble on, not even the shelters we stitch together from ruins. It's the decision to keep speaking into the dark, even when no one answers. The march isn't over. I don't think it ever will be. The glowing storms circle the earth like wolves, moving in packs, waiting for weakness. Every map is useless now. The dunes redraw themselves every season, and even the stars only come through in broken glimpses. But still, there are paths, hidden veins of survival. Mara is weaker, but she walks. I think the river marked her differently than it did me. She says she hears whispers when the storms pass overhead, voices in the sand, calling her by name. I don't know if that's real or just the scars talking, but it keeps her moving, and that's what matters. As for me, my blood still glows faint in the dark. The thirst doesn't return the way it used to. Maybe the river gave me more than water. Maybe it gave me a piece of itself. I don't know if that's salvation or corruption. maybe both. But I'm not dead, and that counts for something. The generator still works. That's a miracle in itself. Every pedal, every grind of the gears is a battle, but the light flickers on, the radio hums, and I remember what it feels like to hold back the dark. Yesterday I found seeds buried in an old ration can. Corn maybe, or something close to it. The packet was torn, damp with sand, half ruined. But one seed looked alive. I planted it by the riverbank just to see. It hasn't sprouted yet, but I check every morning. My heart catches every time I brush the soil away, hoping for green. Maybe it won't grow. Maybe nothing grows anymore. But for now, it's a reason to kneel in the dust, a reason to look down instead of only up. That's survival too. I used to dream of the world as it was. The hum of streetlights, the smell of rain on concrete, voices calling each other from balconies. I thought if I held those memories tight, I'd keep them alive. But memory is heavy. Too heavy to carry across dunes that never end. Now I let them go, one by one. The city streets, the river that wasn't glowing, the family I couldn't save. I don't hold them anymore. They drift like sand through my fingers, and in their place, quieter things grow. The way Mara hums when she thinks no one's listening. The sound of the wind breaking against ruined towers. The shimmer of my own blood in the dark. It isn't the same world. It never will be, but it's still a world, and I'm still in it. If you hear this, if anyone hears this, know that survival isn't about strength. It isn't about refusing to bend. It's about breaking and still finding a way to move. Drink if you must, hide if you must, change if you must. None of us walk away untouched. None of us remain who we were, but that doesn't mean we're lost. The storms want silence. They want emptiness. Every voice that cuts through the static is defiance. Every breath you take is rebellion. Stay alive. Stay human, whatever that means now. The march of the glowing sandstorms isn't something we'll outlast. Not in the way people used to talk about victory, as if there would be an end date circled on a calendar. There is no end date. There is only this: dawn, dusk, dust, hunger, thirst, fear. And still we move. Still we fight. Hope isn't a beacon anymore. It isn't fire or thunder. It's a seed buried in poisoned earth. It's a whisper on a dead frequency. It's one more step, one more breath, one more sunrise. That's enough. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Maybe the storms will take me. Maybe the river will. Maybe the glow inside me will burn too bright to contain. But tonight I have my voice. Tonight I have the hum of the generator, the flicker of the radio light, and the sound of Mara breathing beside me. And tonight, that's enough to keep going.